Hello, this is the 278th edition of Catch of the Day, available on the Branch Talk YouTube channel. Today we're going to continue reading from a book written by Trent Wilde entitled The King of Crisis in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Starting on page 31, last paragraph, midway through. David was just such a leader. While he had the title king, he was a leader far more like Samuel than like Saul or any king after him. David was a recipient of prophetic inspiration, writing many psalms and communicating God's message to the people. Jezreel, as the one head over the united Israel and Judah, fills the same role in Hosea 1 and 2, as David their king fills in Hosea 3. Ezekiel, prophesying many years after Hosea, was heavily influenced by Hosea. He transformed Hosea's image of one head into the image of a shepherd, one shepherd, and combined ideas that Hosea attached to Jezreel with ideas attached to David their king from Hosea 3. Ezekiel thus interpreted Hosea's images of Jezreel and David to represent the same thing, and rightly so. I will save my flock, and they shall no longer be ravaged, and I will judge between sheep and sheep. I will set up over them one shepherd, my servant David, and he shall feed them. He shall feed them and be their shepherd. And I, the Lord, will be their God, and my servant David shall be prince among them. I, the Lord, have spoken. I will make with them a covenant of peace, and banished wild animals from the land, so that they may live in the wild and sleep in the woods securely. I will make them and the region around my hill a blessing, and I will send down the showers in their season. They shall be showers of blessing. The trees of the field shall yield their fruit, and the earth shall yield its increase. They shall be secure on their soil, and they shall know that I am the Lord, when I break the bars of their yoke and save them from the hands of those who enslaved them. Ezekiel 34, verse 22 to 27 in RSV. In reading the whole chapter, it becomes apparent that what sets David apart is that he actually feeds the flock. Clearly the flock for the people of Israel. Since Ezekiel is employing symbolic imagery, it should be obvious that the pasture upon which the flock feeds is also symbolic. Ellen White interpreted the pasture in this very chapter to represent the truth, which it is for the flock's salvation to receive. MS 33, 1900.12. Thus David is the one appointed by God to be the one shepherd over his flock, being distinguished from other shepherds by virtue of the fact that he communicates God's message to his people. Thus, his role is more that of a prophet than of a king, in the ordinary sense. It is also worth taking note that the fact that David's role is here connected with a covenant of peace, whereby people will be safe from wild animals and dwell securely in the land, the very things connected with Jezreel in Hosea 2:18. The same is also true of the increase of agricultural produce. See Hosea 2, verse 21 and 22. Another passage in Ezekiel paints the same basic picture. It is the last part of the prophecy of the two sticks, Ezekiel 37, 15 to 28. One stick is described as representing Israel, the northern kingdom, and the other as representing Judah, the southern kingdom. The two sticks are joined together into one stick, and then a further explanation is given. Here it is. I will make them one nation in the land, on the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king over them all. Never again shall they be two nations, and never again shall they be divided into two kingdoms. They shall never again defile themselves with their idols, and their detestable things, or with any of their transgressions. I will save them from all the apostasies into which they have fallen, and I will cleanse them. Then they shall be my people, and I will be their God. My servant David shall be king over them, and they shall all have one shepherd. They shall follow my ordinances, and be careful to observe my statutes. They shall live in the land that I gave to my servant Jacob, in which your ancestors lived. They and their children and their children's children shall live there forever, and my servant David shall be their prince forever. I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them. And I will bless them and multiply them, and will set my sanctuary among them forevermore. My dwelling place shall be with them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Then the nations shall know that I, the Lord, sanctify Israel, where my sanctuary is among them forevermore. Ezekiel 37, verse 22 to 28, NRSV. Again, Ezekiel speaks of a time when the two kingdoms of Israel would be joined into one kingdom, with one leader, one head. That head would be the one shepherd, David, a prophet king. Did you notice some of the reference back to Hosea? Hosea said Israel and Judah would be joined together and have one head. Jezreel. Hosea 1 verse 11. Hosea also said that God would call them my people, and he would be their God, Hosea 2:23, as well as a covenant of peace, Hosea 2:18. All of these references go back to Hosea 1 and 2. Ezekiel is thus once again linking David with Jezreel. I have quoted these passages from Ezekiel since he builds upon Hosea's theme of a prophet king, and in doing so highlights that image all the brighter within Hosea itself. Let's recap what we have learned from Hosea 1 and 2. These chapters continue the analogy of God's relationship with Israel as represented by Hosea's marriage. Hosea's wife Gomer had 3 children, the first with Hosea and the other 2 through adulterous relationships. The 2 legitimate children represented the kingdoms of Israel and Judah. They came about through circumstances that were not in harmony with the wishes of God, but God was willing to accept them as his children and for the family to be restored. The first son of the family, Jezreel, was the legitimate son of Hosea and represented the true prophetic line. Just as Hosea commissioned Jezreel to be his spokesperson to his siblings, God commissioned the prophets to be his spokespersons to the Israelites and Judahites. A time was looked forward to when God would accept the children of Israel and Judah as his people, and he would be their God. They would be joined together and appoint one head, not uninspired kings, as they had in the past, but a leader whom God would answer. 2 verse 21 and 22. Jezreel 1:11. Jezreel thus signaled the end of the kingship of Israel 1:4 and 5, and the ruling dynasty of, at that time, being the house of Jehu. Interesting. Take care.